Hi everybody, welcome to Raising Vibrations with myself, Simon. Today guys, I'm going to be creating a video for you, sharing with you basically the understanding about houses and astrological house placements that I use in my own personal practice, and basically just sharing with you why it is that I choose the house system, and also giving a practical but yet very grounded approach to the reasoning behind that, basically. Okay. Now, the first thing that I would like to open up to you guys and to share with you is that the house system itself is, it's actually quite an interesting aspect of the astrological, world or universe in that sense. I'm going to be honest with you guys and say that I have a very limited field when it comes to knowing what astrological houses there are, etc. I pretty much picked up evolutionary astrology, and have just seen that the house system that is used over there is really, really great, and it has an extreme amount of truth to it. So I haven't really experimented with other house systems. I know that some other astrologers use house systems and they kind of get like similar results in that sense. I suppose for me personally, I just see that anything that is not sort of like part of nature and reflects the natural ways that consciousness manifests itself is really man-made in that way. And so therefore anything else can't really manifest other than that over there, because we are connected with that. But again, that's just my personal opinion based on a truth that I understand. But that's exactly what I'll be offering you guys today in terms of that, okay? So the first thing, and again, this video is for everybody that's watched astrology, that knows to astrology, that doesn't know to astrology. So I'm going to be catering for both in that way in this video as well, guys. So if you feel bored by it in that way, you know that information, then that's okay. But it is also based on people that are learning about it as well. So be patient with them in that sense. Right, so the first thing that I wanted to open up with, as you guys can see on the left-hand side over there, there's the houses, okay? That's an astrology wheel. And basically you can see those that circle over there as this kind of like pie that exists within, or should I say not a circle, pardon me, one pie piece, one cake piece, okay? And 12 of those pieces make up this 360-degree circle. And they're broken up into 30 degrees. So 30 degrees, multiply that by 12 in that sense. So what's basically happening over here is that in terms of the nature of consciousness itself, you can see that each pie piece reflects an aspect of our nature, an aspect of our consciousness. And so, for instance, when we look at the first house, in other words, the house that's right on the angle over here on your left-hand side, okay, you can see number 1, okay. That aspect will correlate to the way that you look at yourself in the mirror, for instance, okay? It's like, it can be seen as that aspect when you see yourself in the mirror and you get that reflection back in that way, right? That's the first house. It can be seen as that experience. When we look at the nature of the 10th house, which if you guys look at that astrology wheel, you can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The 10th house in that particular instance, in its deepest form, its most purest form, the 10th house reflects the nature of protection. In other words, form that has manifested on Earth, which is why it will have the association with Saturn and the association with Capricorn, because Capricorn crystallizes stuff to create form. And it'll be associated with your home, or at least the outside of it. And it'll be associated with your skin, for instance, right? Because that creates the form around your body, the bark of a tree. And you look at the shell on a crab, okay? If you actually look at the opposite side of Capricorn, or the 10th house, it relates to the 4th house, okay? And this relates to the inside of Capricorn. In other words, what Capricorn is protecting, or the 10th house is protecting. So in this particular instance, the houses themselves reflect aspects of consciousness, and they are individual aspects of consciousness that work in polarity. So when you're looking at the 4th house, always understand that you're looking at the 10th house as well at the same time. There is no individualism in that way, okay? Because they're cooperating and coexisting at the same time. In fact, that whole chart in itself is operating at the same time, you know? So when you're looking at the 10th house, for instance, and you're understanding it as protection, right? You're looking at the 4th house. The 4th house is needing security, right? Relative to the sense of needing to protect. So there's this whole like intertwining thing where the 10th house manifests from the 4th house and the 4th house manifests from the 10th house. And so you get the experience of night and day, or yin and yang, okay, on and off, right? We live in the world of duality or polarity in our sense. The eyes, for instance, show you that experience. Two eyes, two ears, two eyes, etc. Okay? And then you look at breath. There's exhale, and then you have inhale, right? And so therefore we have this truth that within our creation and within our reality, we have this polarity or this duality in that sense. Okay? So the chart itself, the houses themselves, are broken up into 12 pieces, and each of them reflect an aspect of our lives or of creation in that sense, okay? Nature and such, and we're a part of it. And then at the same time, it operates in polarity, so therefore the first house and the 7th house operate together, the 10th house and the 4th house operate together. They're all intertwined. So whenever you're looking at that in that sense, which is why, an interesting little tidbit over here, every time people talk about the nature of the 10th house or the nature of Saturn or Capricorn, it's always like heaviness, you know, of duty and so on and so forth, and restriction and boundaries and such, and that way. And then it's also about like depression. But nobody actually recognizes that it's not really depression. It's a natural part of our consciousness where we need to reflect. So there's a blockage that is created within our lives. We feel blocked. We feel limited in that sense, Saturn energy. And what does Saturn energy do? Slows everything down. Why? Why does it slow everything down? Because it's needing you to literally slow down and take some time out and to reflect, to breathe. What is its polarity? Cancer. What is the sign of Cancer? Water. All right? Reflection. Inward reflection. So when I look at the houses in that sense and evolutionary astrology in that way, or particularly the Jeffrey Wolf Green version, okay, when we look at the 10th house, for instance, okay, the house system, we understand its polarity and we recognize that the manifestation of that house is always inducing its polarity point and relative to the laws of nature, okay, in that sense, you can see it out there. Right. So that's the first thing that I want to encourage you to recognize and to share with you guys. The house system is a reflection of our consciousness, and that consciousness is circled. It talks about the full spectrum of light, or the full spectrum of our consciousness in that way, and then it reflects the full spectrum of nature, which we are intrinsic to. And then it reflects the nature that we operate in polarity, and so therefore there is the 4th house and the 10th house always operating together in that sense, which means that we only really have 6 houses in that sense, because the opposite is always a reflection, and they're always interacting with each other constantly. So we have these 6 houses really, but then they're broken down into a reflection of 5 houses, and then 2 other houses, right? So for instance, pardon me, I've lost my train of thought there when I was trying to explain that. It got a little bit complicated. The 6th house and the 12th house, okay, are houses that reflect an interjection between the 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So up until from the 1st to the 5th, we have subjective awareness, right? The awareness of the self, the bottom part of the chart. And then from the 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, we have the objective awareness. But when we flip it around, what happens is that I'm standing over here, I have my subjective awareness. When you're standing over there, you have your subjective awareness. But when the top part of the chart, in other words, the top houses, you know, the external houses or the outside houses or the top part of the houses, right? 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11, that is a reflection of another person's inner. Do you see how this is working? So when you look at something like, for instance, the axis between the 5th house and the 11th house, what you're looking at here is the 5th house of my subjective awareness interacting with another person's 5th house. And it's that individuality that they're expressing that I'm interpreting, and the other way around. You see how this is working? I got a little bit complicated over there, but that's the essence of what I'm trying to say. So the first thing is that the houses reflect the nature of our consciousness, the constellations. And the constellations in the houses are the same archetype. They are no different. Aries in the 1st house, the same thing. They are no different. Okay, Taurus, the 2nd house, the same thing. Gemini, 3rd house, the same thing. Cancer, 4th house, the same thing. Leo, or 5th house, the same thing. And then we got Virgo, 6th house, same thing. Libra, 7th house, same thing. 8th house, Scorpio. 9th house, Sagittarius. 10th house, Capricorn. 11th house, Aquarius. 12th house, Pisces. Okay? They're the same archetypes completely. And so therefore the houses are a reflection of the constellation in that sense. Now, when you talk about the houses in terms of looking at an astrology chart, which is what I'm going to bring up for you guys right now, is the reflection of the the reflection of the houses when you look at an astrology chart correlates to that person's individual story, because now we've got planets that we're going to put into that. So the houses themselves correlate to individual stories. So for instance, for me, that's why the birth time is so important, when you're looking at an astrology chart, because I can be born at 11:15, and that will put my placement of my Pluto in the 11th house. And and then you'll have like Mars in the 6th, etc., etc. Now for me personally, that Pluto in the 11th house is a specific story to me. That's intrinsic to me. So the houses themselves gives this personal appearance and this personal expression. Whereas if I didn't have the house systems, let's say for instance I didn't have my time of birth, then I would be born with a Pluto and Libra generation. And I'm affected as a part of the Pluto and Libra as a generation, as a whole. But what is my specific story? Without the house system, you can't get that specific story. So you can be really accurate in terms of understanding a soul's journey, but you won't understand the specifics of that journey. You won't have that extra deep layer. So it's a layer, and it's the deepest layer in that sense. And I want to encourage you guys to recognize something as well, is that when you have the sun, or any other planet for that matter, in a house. So for instance, if you've got the sun in the 10th house, and let's say for instance your sun is in the 10th house but in Scorpio, then what happens is that you've actually got the sun in Capricorn and then in Scorpio as well. So it's those two layers actually interacting with each other. So what does Scorpio and Capricorn actually symbolize when they're synchronized together? So it's always understanding that you're a Capricorn sun and you're also learning Scorpio lessons. So Capricorn being the house placement that you've got in the deepest layer, and you will most likely be representing those archetypes as well. So if you've got, like, for instance, you've always seen yourself as an Aries sun sign, and you've got, the sun in the 8th. So you've got the sun in the 8th, and then your sun sign, or Aries, is ruling your 8th house. Then what's going to happen over here is that not only you're going to feeling of this personal feeling of entrapment, you're also going to be feeling like very scorpionic, and yet you have these Aries type of qualities about you as well. So you read your horoscope, for instance, and then you recognize, oh, this is not me. I'm always like understanding the depths of things, but Aries tells me I'm supposed to be, free in that, but I'm yet committed, entrapment. So the thing that I wanted to share with you is that no wonder the horoscopes are never accurate in that sense, because the layers and depth of understanding the birth charts are far more complex in that sense. So the houses play an important role in that way. Right, guys, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go over to a slide quickly, and I'm just going to show you guys a little bit more about nature of house systems and Porphyry and Koch, which is the one that I use, okay? So I'll see you there now. So this is the astrology wheel that I've got for you over there. And as you can see, you've got Aries and the first house. This was the first house. When I was talking in the video, I was talking about the 10th house as well, Capricorn. That's the symbolism over there. When I was talking about Pisces, it was this one, the 12th house. Let me actually go through them systematically for you. So you got Aries and you got the first house here. You got the second house and you got Taurus. You got Gemini and you got the third house. You got the fourth house and you got Cancer. You got the fifth house and you got Leo, constellation, and so on and so forth. And then 6th house Virgo, 7th house Libra, 8th house Scorpio, 9th house Sag, 10th house Capricorn, 11th house Aquarius, and 12th house Pisces. Okay, and this is the evolutionary interjunction I was talking about. So you've got this evolutionary impulse that goes all the way from here. So you've got Aries, you've got Taurus, you've got Gemini and Cancer, and then Leo, and it stops here and it goes, right, this is subjective awareness. And this is an evolutionary junction where it's like subjective awareness gets transferred into objective awareness. This is where you learn to understand that everybody's equal through personal humiliation. Right, inward reflection. Can you see the archetype there? And that's when everybody else is expressing themselves. So you experience everybody. So the opposite of Gemini is Sagittarius, and the opposite of Sagittarius is Gemini. So when you're interacting with a person, you're understanding your opinions relative to their beliefs. And when they're interacting with you, they're seeing your opinions relative to their beliefs, and the other way around. I hope that makes sense. So this is the astrological wheel, and those are the houses that are represented there. Now the house system I use is Porphyry. And some other evolutionary astrologers also like to use the house system of Koch, which I think are just equally as decent. Now, the reason why I use this house system, and this is what I really want to try and get you guys to understand in this sense, is the application and the importance of grounding truth into the physical reality. In other words, when looking at an astrology chart, how does this truth represent itself in physical form? How does it actually manifest in our daily lives? And how do we integrate, and how are these truths represented in a physical way that is grounded, that is in our reality, that we can see, that is the truth, that we don't need to have a belief system in? And this is why I use this house system, because it is completely and utterly, in my opinion, the total truth. It's like this house system reflects to us natural laws that exist in the earth, okay, and on earth and in nature, okay, natural laws that in other words, if I had to take the human being out of the equation and then look at how the earth and consciousness is manifesting, etc., what laws exist without our intervention. And Porphyry, to me, using a house system makes the most amount of sense. And the reason why this is the case is because Porphyry takes each house like this, 1, 2, 3, and it divides it, okay, into a quarter, all right, in that sense. So what you've got here is you've got the 4 elements. You've got fire, you've got water, you've got air, you've got ground, and then you've got fire again, okay? 4 elements, right? So they're equal in that sense. And then you've got 3 house systems, 1, 2, 3. And what happens here is that you have the 3 trines. So you've got Aries or fire trine between that house system there, that one there, and that one there. 3 fire elements, all 3 trining it, right? And then you've got the water, you've got the water, and you've got the water. There's another trine, water trine, perfectly intrinsic, part of this consciousness. And then you've got earth, earth goes there with the trine, and so on and so forth. And what you start to see here with this wheel is the essential manifestation of how consciousness is operating as it naturally is, the law of 3, right? So in our human experience, we understand past, present, and future. So then we have the 3 signs, the 3 fire signs. So it is natural that when you're looking at this house system, that there are these equal trines that are manifesting themselves. And this is our consciousness. This is how we are operating. These archetypes are part of us in the sense. The Aries archetype is an impulse of new direction, right? This is the impulse of special, feeling a special destiny. Like what is my personal goals? How do I find myself in the world in that sense? Okay, and then Sagittarius correlates to that location, that belief system, that truth that I have. So you can see this in terms of a tree. You know, I like to use it as nature as an example to prove these things, because they are not man-made. There's no like intervention. We don't have like all these calculating mathematical equations to go through. It's just simple. So this is the grounded truth in looking at this house system and this chart, is that when you look at Aries, you see the new beginnings, so the seed breaking through the ground, okay? When you look at the tree itself, it never stops and asks anybody, or any plant for that matter, or any bug, or any animal for that matter, stops and says, you know, Sam over here, I'm a little bit confused about the nature of how am I supposed to be growing the branches on my tree, on my, trunk over here. I'm a little bit confused. I don't know how to do this. You know, should I see a psychiatrist or a therapist to guide me along this process? No, you never see that happening. You never see grass just, you know, stopping by and going, hey, you know, like collection of bees, how do you think I should like manifest my color today? Should I, you know, add extra chlorophyll so that I can become greener, etc.? You don't see any sort of like animal asking and stopping for direction in that sense. There is an intrinsic like blueprint that exists within the manifestation of anything that exists on earth, that is intrinsic to it, that it has absolutely no like need for guidance, because that blueprint of manifestation, that direction, that course, that expression has already been defined relative to its environment, which means that Leo actually correlates to the nature of how that expression manifests. So for instance, if you look at a peacock, for instance, it's got lots of colors. And according to my knowledge, one of the reasons as to why animals or bugs, for instance, will have bright colors is because it's a warning system, right? So this is an expression. This is how it identifies itself in this lifetime. And when you look at Leo, Leo's all about the identification. And look at its opposite sign, Aquarius, my individuality. So my individuality manifests my creative expression. My creative expression creates my individuality. And Uranus, 11th house in Aquarius, actually correlates to the blueprints of everything that exists within nature. This organic process that manifests. So the point I'm trying to make here is that in terms of nature itself, all these symbols in terms of that trine that makes it there and that fire trine over there is the nature of it. Its location, its belief system in that sense. So there's this natural trine that manifests in all of these houses, and porphyry correlates to the essence of dividing everything up into three. So 3, 1, 2, 3, equal house there, okay? Right? So they are generally equal house systems. That's the point that I was trying to make over here. Pardon me for only sharing that with you guys right now. So it makes it up into 3. And so what happens here is you've got 1, 2, 3 equal house systems, 30, 30, 30, and then a divide, okay? And then it goes like that. And so what we're looking at here again is the nature of how these house systems reflect to us something, okay? And that something is repeating themes in the sense. So I want to go over here and add this in quickly. Before I go over to the chart to show you these repeating themes, guys, I want to show you about the house system. This house system correlates to external energy. So it is masculine and it's going outwards, okay? In that sense. So the energy is going outwards, energy is flowing, it is pioneering, Aries, Mars, first house. And then what happens is the natural law of inhale. So we have exhale, Aries energy, masculine energy, fire energy, and we have inhale, reception, okay, Taurus energy. This is why you're inwardly reflecting in yourself on this experience over here, right? The feminine archetype, the reception. When you look at the man, what is he doing when there's procreation? And what is the female doing in procreation? You see how this masculine energy going outwards, daytime, and then receiving energy, nighttime in that sense. And that is how this works. So it's external energy, internal energy, external energy, internal energy, which is why that 4th house in Cancer will be receptive, going inward within oneself in that way. And the natural house system through porphyry is how that works. Okay? Now, the next thing I want to show with you guys over here and what this does in terms of looking at a house system and looking at the consciousness is that this, what I've just drawn with you guys right now, is how these archetypes actually manifest with themselves inwardly and how they actually reflect life. You know, when you look at the 8th house, for instance, it makes a natural 150-degree aspect to the 1st house, okay? And this is what I was talking about. Scorpio has always been ruled by Pluto, but it's always been had this like thing of Aries. Can you see the symbolism? Pluto being the higher octave of Aries or Mars, for instance. There's a natural connection between the two in that sense. But Mars in itself correlates to the nature of how we action things, how we get things done, but they reflect the desire of us. Where does this desire come from? Pluto, right? 8th house, Scorpio. What are my desires in that sense, but unconsciously? Right? Remember that Aries is external and Scorpio is internal. So this natural inconjunct shows us how we are always constantly separating from our sense of security, and that's reflected through the 8th house in the sense, our attachments, and we're learning more about ourselves as we pioneer in directions. What happens is that whenever we do something new and we explore something, we create this natural feeling of anxiety, this natural feeling of like separateness. I'm separating from something. And that is actually reflected through the square between Aries and Cancer, right? Because what Cancer reflects is the nature of security, inward security, needing to feel secure, the womb, a sense of safety, things that have happened before. So there's a natural connection between the 8th house and the 4th house, and this is what your emotional security is linked with your sense of empowerment. I know what I'm talking about in that sense, and that makes me feel secure. Whereas if I talk about something that I have absolutely nothing, I know nothing of it, I feel insecure in that sense. I can't really be as verbose about something. I can't really be open about what I know. I feel insecure. Should I say it? Am I shy? Etc., etc. So what happens here is that as soon as you start something new and you pioneer something new, you have to leave all your emotional security behind, which creates emotional confrontation that leads you to be re-empowered through transmutation. So the consciousness within this house system and the actual astrological symbols reflect to us how we actually are naturally operating within our ways. And it shows us here this natural inconjunct and birthed in every single moment, moving away from something that makes us feel secure in that way, right? And then that's that aspect. I mean, there's loads of them over here. Did anybody know that the Fibonacci sequence, you know, when you start in straight lines and then all of a sudden you start to move in a very curvature? Have you ever noticed when you started a new job or you started doing something for the first time, after a period of time you really got good at it, right? But there was this experience of having to feel sometimes shy or incompetent, or lack a sense, I don't know how to do it, or I have to become really good at it, or I have to learn and I have to go through certain experiences in order for me to become good at it and aware of it. But when you started it out for the first time, it was really, really scary and anxious. That's an actual relationship between Aries and Virgo. There's a natural inconjunct between the 6th house and 1st house that correlates to the nature of going in sporadic directions and feeling completely and utterly new to everything, and then progressively over a period of time through competence, gaining competence, becoming more efficient, learning how to become more efficient at something until you're really competent, right? You see how that goes in that sense. Right, so the one thing that I wanted to show you guys over here again was this line over here between Aquarius, which is this 11th house here, and the 4th house. Okay, whenever somebody dies, you experience an incredible amount of like emotional loss and trauma in that sense. Why? Because you feel comfortable in that knowing, that security, that feeling of connectedness. When somebody dies, the natural square between the 8th house and 11th house causes a separation and a detachment, which leads you to experience emotional shock. There's a natural inconjunct between the 4th house and the 11th house that causes that emotional shock relative to something that's died. Remember the 4th house trine. Pretty cool, isn't it? All right. You see what the astrological house systems, as well as like the constellations, reflect. This is nothing. This has got nothing to do with predictive astrology in that way. It's telling you how nature operates. Pretty neat, isn't it, guys? Here we go. It has that natural inconjunct that I was talking about with Virgo and Aries. You know, that's exactly what I was talking about there in that sense. Right, guys, so this is an actual astrological chart, for instance. And what I wanted to show you guys in this particular video specifically was the nature of how these archetypes, look here, okay, how these symbols and how these things operate in this particular instance. So you've got Saturn making an inconjunct between the 7th house and 12th house. So whatever that symbolizes, I'm not going to get into that. Now that's how that's operating in this person's consciousness continuously. The nature of one's personal authority and how they're operating and valuing other people's needs is completely and utterly in a realignment aspect to this 12th house over here, right? So when you're looking at a person, what does it mean to live with this person? What does it mean to have this person have this understanding within themselves, etc.? Pretty neat, isn't it? And then I wanted to show you the idea of repeating themes. That's Saturn, that the 10th house and Capricorn are all the same archetype. Mars, Aries, first, all are the archetypes, okay? So look here. Okay, so the ruler of Venus in this particular instance is Libra, right? So Venus and Libra rule the same thing. So there's this, it's called a depositor, where basically the whole chart goes around, and all of a sudden hits this point and goes, hang on, this is the main focus point, which is interesting. Okay, because the ruler of Venus is Libra. The ruler of the sun is Venus again. See, repeating themes right there. And the ruler of Mercury is Libra as well, right? In this particular instance. Okay, so in this particular instance, this person's communication, their sun and their Venus all aspecting over there. Right, check this out. Mars in Leo, so that's the ruler of Mars in this particular instance is the sun. So we're looking at the nature of this person's creative expression in relationships, right? Look at that over there. So make this more clearer. The ruler of Mars is Leo, or Leo's constellation. Therefore, the ruler of Leo is the sun, and it's come back to the same point again. Okay, here's a major focus point in this person's chart. And it's in the 11th house, so what we're looking at here is what? We're looking at the nature of deconditioning, right? Individuality. What's the opposite sign of the 11th house? Leo. So this person naturally has that repeating theme there again. Okay? Pretty interesting. Right? Here's another repeating theme again, guys. You've got Uranus in Aquarius. Moon in Aquarius. Moon in the 4th house, making this aspect to the nodes. The nodes are affected by the moon in that particular instance, because the way that the moon operates is through the nodes. You evolve through the natal placement in this particular instance, right? So and here you've got here again the 5th house. There's a nodal axis here. The sun's in the 12th, the south node's in the 5th. The ruler of Mars is the sun, okay? In that particular instance, conjunct the north node. It's telling you it has a direct relationship to that 5th house. What is it needing to be moved away from in that way? Can you see how there are these repeating themes in this particular instance? Okay, the ruler of Saturn let me put it this way: Saturn's in the 7th house, so it's a Libra archetype. The ruler of Saturn is Taurus, which makes it Libra, and it brings me all back down to this point again. Okay, Venus, relationships, balance, relationships, communicating, relationships. You see how this is operating? So this is how you're looking at this chart, and all these constellations and house systems and angles, etc., reflect the nature of how this person is basically operating in this life. And the house system correlates to that. All right, so you've got this repeating theme here. This is a porphyry chart. Everything's balanced in that sense. There are repeating themes. The moon's in the 4th house, but it's traumatized relative to Aquarius. And then you've got Aquarius, you've got the Aquarius in the 4th house, just adding emphasis to that traumatized thing. It's repeating themes that I'm showing you guys over here, that I'm trying to highlight, and that the house systems play important aspects in showing us and giving us deeper things in terms of the way that we understand our lives. Now, another thing that I wanted to add to you guys is that whenever you're looking at the house system, you're also actually looking at a conjunction. So in this particular instance, this person's got Mars in the 11th house, which means that they've actually got Mars conjunct Uranus, because Uranus and Aquarius are the same archetype as the 11th house. So this person will actually be manifesting very similar aspects as if they had Mars conjunct Uranus. The same aspect over here. Pluto is in the 2nd house, which means they would have Pluto conjunct Venus. In this particular instance, they'll be manifesting the same archetypes. Can you see the repeating theme? 2nd house, okay? And then there's that Venus stuff over there. There we go again. In fact, there's a natural yod between the 12th, 7th, and 2nd, right? And there's the inconjuncts. Check there. There's those inconjuncts making that aspect. Look at the North Node. A Virgo rules the archetype of that green line, and he's got a North Node in that sign. All right, this person has got Saturn conjunct Venus again, Pluto conjunct Venus. Look what's being evolved in this chart, in this person's astrology chart. The 11th house, the Venus archetype, right? And here you've got Uranus conjunct the moon, Uranus conjunct the moon, Neptune conjunct the moon, Neptune conjunct the moon, right? Neptune in the 4th conjunct the moon, same thing. Uranus conjunct the moon, and also in the 4th house. You see how that's manifesting there, guys? Pretty neat, isn't it? Okay, great. Well, guys, I really hope that you enjoyed this little expert over here, and that it gave you information and understanding about the nature of houses and how they have this practical manifestation in our lives. It's all about conjunctions. It's all about the nature of how they are operating in our lives. It's the Trinity. This is what I was trying to say to you guys over here in terms of the nature of the houses themselves. Porphyry and the house placement correlates to the Trinity, right? The law of 3, past, present, and future in that sense. So you're also looking at the chart from that point of view as well. The other thing is that's the nature of 3 in that sense, or the Fibonacci sequence. Again, you have the emergence of something, the origin of something, and then the fixedness of it, and then of course how it dissipates into the past in that sense as well. Okay, guys, great. I really hope that you enjoyed this. Like I said, I hope it gave you information. Please comment down below. Be sure to check out my website for all the services that I do. And if you're interested in learning about astrology, I do actually have an online astrology course that's beginning next week. Please come over to my website and check that out and sign up.